Welcome to the Lower Lake Schoolhouse Museum. Our gate was constructed by our local blacksmith, Bud Boyce. On its design, you will find two pieces of the fence that surrounded the original courthouse in Lakeport in the late 1800s. This outside stairway was also the work of Bud Boyce at the Clear Lake Machine Shop.
This monument is in honor of Clifford Salvador, who was the last chief and doctor of the Tuolumne tribe, Lower Lake branch of the Miwok Indians, presented by the Lower Lake Women's Improvement Club, members of the GFWC. We are still working on the landscaping, and as you can see, there is still a lot to be done.
In 1871, the citizens of Lower Lake began to raise funds for building a schoolhouse, but construction did not begin until 1876. Leslie Nichols was employed as architect. The foundation was dug down to solid sandstone, and brick from a local kiln was used for the walls of the building. The building, completed in 1877 and named the Nichols Schoolhouse, served as a school until 1935. During that time, there was no electricity, nor running water, nor indoor toilet facilities. Each day, the teachers filled jugs of water and placed them by the two doors, along with a cup. The outdoor toilet facilities were at the rear of the building. When the Masonic Lodge purchased the building after 1935, they remodeled to suit their needs, and all the modern conveniences were installed in the late 1930s. The place was used by the Lodge for a number of years until their new building was built on Highway 53. The schoolhouse again became the property of the County of Lake and was leased to the Grange for a number of years. In 1986, a nonprofit corporation dedicated to the preservation and restoration of this wonderful old building was formed. After many fundraising events, there was still some doubt whether this project would ever get off the ground, but in 1989, the Board of Supervisors proclaimed it a county historical building. In the spring of 1992, a crew from the Konocti Conservation Camp provided labor for the new roof on the schoolhouse, which was our first step to delay any further deterioration. The funds for material came from donations and dues. In August of 1992, painting began on the exterior with paint acquired through the Konocti Unified School District for a minimal cost, and by October 1st, 1992, the outside was pretty well finished. That was the easy part. Next came sheetrock on the inside ceilings and walls. The north room, which we call the schoolroom, had to be completely rebuilt, and a new oak floor was installed in August of 1993. After the major construction work was done, the finishing was more tedious and took time to complete. This included installation of a new toilet facility, new tile floors, and at least 2 coats of paint on all walls, ceilings, and trim. The formal dedication of the first floor of the historical schoolhouse was held on October 21st, 1993, just a year after starting work inside. The Lower Lake Schoolhouse and Museum opened for visitors the following day. However, restoration plans did not stop there. The upper floor was the next project.
This cabinet was built in 1850 and was later used in the post office in the community of Reef, California. The Reef Ranch, called the German Ranch, was located 11 miles southeast of Lower Lake. There were quicksilver mines in the area, which increased the need for a post office in the location. In 1881, a farmhouse post office was established with John Reef as the first postmaster. By 1887, the Reef Ranch consisted of 600 acres. The main farmhouse was a 1 1/2 story building. There were also granaries, wagon sheds, a blacksmith shop, a smokehouse, and a large barn 50 feet on each side. The Reef Ranch was a substantial community. The post office was discontinued in 1941, and the building it occupied was razed in the late 1940s. The museums have a listing of all the rural post offices in Lake County in the book entitled Places and Postal History.
This is the original sign for the Lower Lake Winery, which was located on Highway 29, 1 mile south of Lower Lake. This was the first winery in Lake County after the repeal of the 18th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. Before Congress passed the Volstead Act in 1919 to prohibit the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcoholic beverages, Lake County had about 29 wineries. When Prohibition was enforced, they were forced out of business and changed the history of agriculture in Lake County. We have a typical display of what a carpenter would carry in his carpenter's toolbox while traveling from job to job. This is a display of handmade wood molding planes of different sizes and shapes made by Jack Kincaid.
This machine is called a corn sheller. It is used to remove the dried kernels of corn from the cob. 2 ears were inserted in the opening, and by turning the handle, the wheel inside rubbed the dried corn off the cob. The corn kernels fell below into a bushel basket, and the cobs were pushed out the front by the teeth that rose and moved to the font. Another bushel basket was used to catch the cobs, which were used in a variety of ways.
Articles in this display are from the Jago's Cash Store, which was located on Main Street in Lower Lake during the 1920s. These were donated by Irene Jago in March of 1997. The diamond dies case with packets of dyes is typical of manufacturers' displays in most country stores. These were used to dye used clothing and flour and feed sacks to make other items. In the case, we show merchandise such as stationery, fine tooth combs, men's one-piece summer underwear in the original box, tire patches, sewing supplies, a case with machine shuttles, bobbins, and needles in 12 different sizes. We also have cans of water glass, which was used to preserve eggs using 1 can of water glass and 2 cans of pure water to cover eggs that had been placed in a crock. This mixture will preserve fresh eggs up to a year. It can then be used to repair cracked windows or size the walls before painting or wallpapering.
Was donated by Ken and Edna Kugelman and was brought to Lake County in 1864 by his grandfather, Louis Kugelman. Louis Kugelman came to America in 1854 at the age of 14 and worked in New York, then came to San Francisco in 1857. He worked in a grocery store in Napa and bought the store in 1860. As he was bothered by the damp, foggy climate, he rode a saddle horse to Lake County, fording rain-swollen Prudhoe Creek by hanging on to the horse's tail as his horse swam across the stream. Louis bought 320 acres of land near Lower Lake and married Sarah Siegel in San Francisco in 1880.
Louis and Sarah had 3 children, Rose, Albert, and Milton. He raised various crops on his farm, including having a vineyard. He built one of the first wineries in Lake County in the late 1800s and shipped wine in puncheons to Calistoga and the Bay Area by horse and wagon. Each puncheon held 500 gallons of wine, and the wagon could carry only 2 of these containers. At the top of the toll road on St. Helena, they had to hire additional horses or mules to hitch to the back of the wagon to keep it from going down the mountain too fast. Louis Kugelman worked with Leslie P. Nichols laying out the town of Lower Lake, and the subdivision was known as the Nichols and Kugelman Edition, recorded February 25, 1876.
This is an exact model of the dam located on Cache Creek. The dam was built with funds from investors from Yolo County between 1912 and 1914. It was originally designed to supply water and generate electricity for use in Yolo County. It is also used to contain the water in Clear Lake during the rainy season. The dam is still owned and operated by Yolo County.
Until this bridge was constructed in 1909, there was no way to cross Cache Creek by vehicle. This iron bridge was removed in the late 1980s to be replaced by a 2-way concrete bridge.
Before any work could be done on the upper floor, an outside stairway was installed in January of 1994. We wanted to preserve the look of the original community room, but it was necessary to insulate the walls and ceiling and install sheetrock. So the Konocti Conservation Camp crew removed the tongue and groove wall siding, numbering each board as it came down, and replaced it after the insulation and sheetrock work was done. The stage was also rebuilt. With the installation of new electrical wiring, at least 2 coats of paint on the walls and ceiling, and carpeting installed, the second floor was ready for use. The purpose of the Lower Lake Historical School Preservation Committee back in 1986 was to provide the citizens of Lake County with a restored building for the use and benefit of the public, while at the same time preserving a part of our past.
After 5, you start panning. The desks here in this schoolroom represent the period of time this building was used as a schoolhouse, which was from 1877 to 1935. Albert Morrow was the first teacher at this school. The little boy ringing the bell is standing in part of what was once the bell tower. Leslie P. Nichols was the architect-builder of the Lower Lake Schoolhouse, which was called the Nichols Schoolhouse, and is pictured here. He was a member of many fraternal organizations and employed by the Clear Lake Water Company, a San Francisco-based company. He was a driving force in the community of Lower Lake. His life was cut short when he drowned in Clear Lake at the age of 41 in September of 1877. He left a wife and 2 small children, and their loss was felt by the whole town. Since he was totally involved in the community, we wonder what Lower Lake and perhaps all of Lake County would have been had he lived.
This piano was in the Lily Langtree House in Gwinoc Valley and donated to the museum by Orville and Karen McGurn.
This Kimball pump organ was used in the Lower Lake Methodist Episcopal Church on 2nd Street in Lower Lake at the turn of the century. The Lower Lake Community United Methodist Church is still using the same building where this organ was originally played. A large player piano was donated to us by Mr. and Mrs. Herschel Hoff. The piano was manufactured in New York around 1917. We call it our magic piano.